Hey, we welcome you on into another episode of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Mitch Spinell alongside Mitchell Balla. This is 29, 30, 31, somewhere around there. Mitch, it's good to be with you again after a long weekend, and it's good to be here talking some sports with you. We have a lot to talk about this week.
An eventful weekend across the board in all sports. We had, I believe, our last sports equinox would have been last week, where you had all four major sports being played on the same day. So we will not get a taste of that again for Mitch, what I believe is until next fall in early September, October. But lots to talk about, lots of excitement around our respective counties too.
No kidding. I mean, and we'll get into much of that, and as well as the national and state level. So before we get into that, we want to remind you guys: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. That's where you can find us. All of our podcasting platforms. Spotify is video as well, along with our YouTube channel, the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Of course, if you're watching here, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And you can go to our website, bigtimesportsohio.com. You can also hit us up on Twitter at BTS Ohio. It's like that Korean boy band, but instead of whatever it stands for, it's Big Time Sports. Facebook as well, Big Time Sports Ohio, same as Instagram, and then our individuals at Mitch Spinell, at Mitchell Balla. So, Mitch, we go into a packed playoff weekend in all sports across the state. The football one, obviously, with the regional quarterfinals setting up here, was interesting because we had a lot of close games. A lot of the teams that started out in the playoffs, a lot of them got cut. So the remaining ones were able to try and keep their winning ways going. And quite a few of them were able to keep their seasons alive, in both in my area and yours. We'll start off in what I consider to be one of the top games of the week. Uniontown Lake escaping with the win over Columbus to St. Francis de Sales. It's a very defensive-minded game up until the end. It was 13-7. Mitch, what can you tell us about the results of that game, the way that game was structured, and particularly the way that it ended?
Well, first things first is this is a team that a lot of people in this area aren't familiar with, especially Uniontown Lake. Keep in mind, once these regions kind of morphed into the way they are now back in 2020, this was a result of them. Instead of playing teams that you're familiar with, just maybe in the greater Cleveland area to Canton, now you're talking about teams from Columbus and, everywhere else in Ohio for the most part. And that was the big thing for Lake. This is a team in Columbus, St. Francis de Sales they did not know much about. You only had 1 week to prep for them, no common opponents at all. And Coach Dan DeGeorge, when I met with him pregame before kickoff, Mitch said he thought this was going to be the best defense they had faced all year to that point. And boy, was he right. This is a defense that is very stout. This is a team that flies around fast, and they have size. You talk about their middle linebackers, Mitch. It looked like they had Division I college linebackers on the field. Their defensive linemen were huge. This was a big team all around. Now, Lake scored on their first drive, thanks in part to a 58-yard Matt Solberger touchdown run, which Solberger then had to work the rest of the game. He only finished with 86 yards, but those were 86 huge yards that he picked up. Lake got a touchdown late in the fourth after DeSales came back and tied it in the third. And Lake goes up 13-7. They had an opportunity to kick a field goal before that touchdown and missed. They score the touchdown then. Extra point is missed. 13-7, under 2 minutes to play, and St. Francis de Sales on their last drive. They got the ball with a little under 2 minutes to go, one timeout. 4th and 15 from their own 10, Mitch. It was going to take a prayer, and their prayer was answered. And it was going to be Lake needed a prayer then, as well as DeSales completed a 58-yard reception across midfield, right over the logo at Lake. And it looked like the Stallions were going to tie and attempt to take the lead late in the fourth quarter. But then Nate Baker, the defensive back for the Blue Streaks, comes out of nowhere and makes a phenomenal play to tackle the receiver. But as he does that, he also comes over top and punches the ball out. I was able to talk to Nate Baker after the game. He did not know he forced a fumble. That was the best part. He knew he made a tackle. He did not know he forced a fumble until he got up and saw his Blue Streak teammates running the other way. So with that being said, Lake did recover the fumble, and Lake ran out the clock. And that is literally how they beat St. Francis de Sales 13-7 in a battle in the trenches that the defense won all night long. And really no big passing plays were completed until the fourth quarter. That's how Lake scored their other touchdown in the fourth on I believe it was over 24-yard touchdown pass. And then DeSales with a 58-yard completion on 4th and 15 from their own 10, only for Lake to make an incredible play to pretty much save their season, Mitch. and send them on now to the regional semifinals in Division II, Region 7.
A great win for the Blue Streaks. And it's funny that you mentioned DeSales as kind of a team that's a little bit of ways away from what a lot of the schools up here typically know. They actually got to this game by beating a team from my area in Dover. And Crater Stadium in Dover is where the Blue Streaks will end up playing their next playoff game this coming Friday against third seeded Westerville South after the Wildcats beat the Vikings of North Canton Hoover this week 27-21. So the Viking season does come to an end in that respect. They were stopped on downs on their final drive, even though they made a valiant effort cutting down the lead, getting an onside kick late in the game, but they were just stopped with about 10 or so seconds left. As far as Tuscarawas County goes, Garaway, we were at Big Time Sports was at the game on Friday. Garaway got their second win of the season over Ridgewood in this one, 21-6. Ridgewood was just a few costly turnovers to really not do some great things. But Garaway will move on. They will advance to the Region 17 semifinals against Perry. That game will be played in Solon. So it's going to be a bit of a drive for both schools to ensure themselves a spot in the following week's regional finals. So and some other schools seeing their season end. The Pirates of Perry. It's funny that it's the Garaway Pirates and the Perry Pirates facing off next week.
Yep.
Perry got to this game by shutting out Fairless 35-0. So we see Fairless end their season at 9-3. And then St. Ed's just dropping one on Jackson 42-0.
And it was very hard. Jackson had all the odds were stacked against them. It was going to be hard to pull off a win like that. But Mitch, it's even harder knowing that the game was practically over heading into the halftime locker room when it was 35-0 St. Ed's, and Ed's had outgained Jackson 350 offensive yards to just 45 yards. And what's crazy is for people that just don't understand the difference between St. Ed's and other high schools, didn't go in-depth research with this, but from what I've gathered, St. Ed's has the third or fourth biggest offensive line in the state of Ohio. That's not high school. That means they have the third or fourth biggest offensive line behind the Cleveland Browns, the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Ohio State Buckeyes. They have Division I commits. Hey. Yes. And there's nothing you can do to prepare yourself for that, Mitch. I mean, these are guys that all go on to play at the next level, and that's the issue you run into yourself here. Jackson just could not muster anything offensively, as you see. But Mitch, the other game I want to touch on from around this area that we saw come to an end in terms of season, we also had Northwest go down to Akron-Buchtel 31-14. And then West Branch continues to win. They beat Struthers 54-35. Canton South defeated number 2 seed Lisbon Beaver 56-48. So Canton South still alive. But the game that I was telling you about last week that I really thought had a chance for, the quote unquote upset was McKinley over Menor.
Yeah.
And McKinley was just about a minute away from being able to do it. Menor scores as they were trailing 14-13 with 12 seconds to go in the fourth quarter. They go for 2, do not get it, but Menor ends up holding on 19-14 to defeat the McKinley Bulldogs. And you knew it was going to be a good game because week 1 was a good game. McKinley was still figuring some things out, and McKinley played a very, very good football game, just not the entire time they needed to on the road at Menor, and Menor squeaks by to survive, and they're on to the regional semifinals as well. But what a turnaround for the McKinley Bulldogs, a team that started out 0-4, that we had no idea what to expect after they lose to Perry after they were up at halftime. And they end up winning their next 5 to win the Federal League title. They drop a close one on the road at Massillon, and then they win their first round playoff matchup, and they go up to Menor, try to get some revenge, and they were so close. But this is a McKinley Bulldog team, Mitch, that I think saw a lot of improvement through the season, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with come the 2023 high school football season.
I agree. And speaking of Massillon, they ended up winning 34-0 over Canal Winchester. So that means they'll take on Big Walnut next week. And we mentioned St. Edwards before. The team that they're going to face this coming week.
Oh boy.
In St. Ignatius. You mentioned the game being over at Jackson with 35-0 at halftime. And yet St. Ignatius pulling off the comeback of all comebacks against Cleveland Heights this past week, down 42-14 at halftime. They win 50-49 in what had to have been an unbelievable turnaround for the team.
There's some people that were there that I actually know that are saying this is perhaps the greatest high school football playoff game they've ever seen. And this was with with Cleveland Heights only completing 2 passes, I believe, in the second half.
Oh, wow.
42-14 against a powerhouse with their coach in Chuck Kyle, the head coach at Cleveland St. Ignatius, that is actually going to be retiring at the end of the year. 11 state championships since he's been the coach there. One of the all-time greatest high school football coaches in the state of Ohio, maybe across the country for what he's done. And it's like that those kids were not going to let him go out like that. And they came out firing in all cylinders in the second half. They end up tying the game at 42. Cleveland Heights then collects themselves, marches down the field to score and take the lead with a little over a minute to go. And then the ensuing kickoff takes place where Ignatius returns the kick to the house for 6. And they knew they had all the momentum in the world. They line up and go for 2 and they get it. And they end up beating Cleveland Heights 50-49 in an absolute thriller. And you have to feel, I mean, it has to hurt for Cleveland Heights, a team that had that big of a lead on a powerhouse like Ignatius. You have to give credit to Ignatius on engineering that comeback. And this is where, sports is, Mitch, a real good life lesson, because this just sets you up for things later down the road. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. I know every athlete for the most part has gone through something like that in their life before. I know I have, where it ends before you ever thought it would end. And you have a loss, an unimaginable loss. It's going to sting, but a great game. And now Ignatius will go on to play St. Ed's, as we know those are one of the biggest rivalries in the state. And we know they absolutely hate each other. And that's going to be an interesting game, because Ed's is expected to win that, but Ignatius, after an emotional win like that, Mitch, you cannot count them out anymore.
Absolutely. Before we move on from other sports this past week, I want to give a shout out to Cardinal Mooney, because they pulled off their second consecutive upset this week. The Mooney was a 13 seed in the Region 17 bracket, the one that Garaway is also in, but they've taken down Edison, who was number 4, 45-14, and then you beat Norwayne, the 5 seed, 24-17. So now you get a date. Your prize for winning that is a date with top seeded South Range this coming Friday. So we'll see who will be taking on the winner of Garaway and Perry this upcoming next Friday. So we go from football over to volleyball. A couple of regional final matchups this week. Mitch, I know you had a few of them in Stark. The one in Tuscarawas County that was big for us was Tuscarawas Central Catholic, traveling downstate to Pickerington North, and unfortunately seeing their season come to an end in straight sets over Newark Catholic, even though the Saints had a very, very good comeback match in their previous one in the regional semifinals, which they were down 2-0, came back and won 3-2. A very, very good season for a very good Saints team. Mitch, what were some of the ones that occurred for you guys this past week?
Well, it was Jackson, as they were looking to get back to the regional final, which they accomplished, but this time rewrite a different story. And unfortunately, they were not able to, as they lost in 4 sets to Rocky River Magnificat, the defending Division I state champion. And that now makes 3 consecutive years that Magnificat has ended Jackson's season. Just a powerhouse right now, Mitch, in the state of Ohio. We know they're a private school. They actually are all over the 6 foot, even their setter, libero, everybody for Magnificat. So the size disparity is there, but Jackson coming back after a first set in which they lost, winning the second set 25-23. And then it was a battle in that third set. And, I was not able to be there as much as I would have liked to have been there for Big Time Sports covering the game to really see the emotion and everything. But sometimes when you fight so hard and you end up on the wrong end, that can really be the difference maker. And you have to wonder if that's what it was. But Jackson, yet again, another phenomenal season, being one of the top 3 public schools in the state of Ohio in terms of the poll, and another season in which Magnificat will go back down to the Final Four and look to repeat again as Division I state champs.
Yeah, and then we also had the events downstate in the cross-country state meet. A big congratulations to Brylan Holland from East Canton, who was the first individual champion in the Hornets' 50-year program history. Ended up rating with a winning time of 15 minutes, 41.7 seconds in the Division III race. That East Canton squad overall has just been very, very, very successful in cross country and all track and field events. And Holland just caps off a great career for the Hornets with a big state title win.
And not only that, which is extremely impressive to win, the individual state championship, Mitch, but then the Marlington boys end up winning the Division II team state title championships. So not only do we have individuals winning the state championship here in Stark County and all around it, but Marlington boys are the Division II cross country state champions. So what an amazing accomplishment that is for Marlington. They've been, dominant the past few years and finally get to go down there and finish it on their own terms and how they would have wanted to finish it. So just really all these sports coming to an end here in the fall, and a great show out and turnout for these Stark County teams and for Tuscarawas teams as well, getting as far as they have and some advancing all the way to win it all.
Absolutely. We'll come back after this break. We'll be talking more on the professional side as well as the college side. We'll get back to it right after this.
When others treat your fries as an afterthought, all you're left with are cold, soggy fries. That's why Wendy's new fries are ones you won't forget, guaranteed to be hot and crispy, or we'll replace them. We're talking natural cut, skin-on fries, perfectly seasoned with a hint of sea salt. In fact, they're even preferred almost 2-to-1 over McDonald's. These are fries so hot and crispy, they beg a new question.
What would you like with your fries?
Try them today, only at Wendy's.
At participating U.S. Wendy's, taste preference based on a national taste test by an independent research company.
Buying a home has never been so affordable with record low interest rates. Hartzler's Quality Housing is ready to put over 40 years of experience to work for you. Family owned and operated since 1978, Hartzler's has a wide selection of model homes on site with a knowledgeable team to help make your new home a reality. Open 6 days a week. Visit them off I-77 in Dover or online at hartzlers.com. Hartzler's Quality Housing. Quality from start to finish.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
You invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young and Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partnered with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-49.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
And welcome you back here to the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Mitch Spinell alongside Mitchell Balla. Now, Mitch, it's time to go over some other stuff in sports. I think I'm going to call an audible and go over to the National Football League, because even though we had a bye week this week for the Browns, there were still a lot of games to get to as far as the games that have already been played and all the results that have happened. Yesterday was interesting because we had a lot of teams that weren't doing very well in the odds beforehand, but were able to pull out victories. A lot of sub 500 teams kind of pulling out wins against unlikely foes, and a lot of them were among the big marquee names in the NFL.
Yeah, Mitch, if you would have told me some of these teams that we saw yesterday were going to end up winning, like the New York Jets over the Bills, I would have said, no way. I don't believe you. If you would have said that the Lions were going to beat the Packers, I would have said, I could see it. Still don't think so, because Aaron Rodgers, typically owns that. But that's exactly what we had happen in terms of that. And then you also had other teams in there coming down to the wire when you look at somebody like the Washington Commanders. And then the Jaguars get back on track, knocking off the Raiders in a game of which I thought the Raiders were going to come in and blow them out. The Bears made it close and covered with the Miami Dolphins. So there was just a lot of teams that we didn't really expect to win yesterday that either made it very close and or got upset wins. And then you had other teams, Mitch, that continue to stay hot and impressive, like the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks win yet again. They beat the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray's now 0-2 since the new Call of Duty came out. Then you have the Bucks and the Rams that looked just awful. I mean, Mitch, if I would have told you here in week 9 of the NFL season that the Packers, the Buccaneers, and the Rams look as bad as they do, I don't think you would have believed me, because I think going into the season, most football fans thought those were the top 3 teams in the NFC.
Yeah. No, I mean, that game, especially with the Rams and Bucks yesterday, was interesting because you have such poor offensive production and on both sides, especially from Tampa Bay, where it seems like it's just constant drop after drop that these wide receivers for Tampa Bay are going through. And then, of course, once the Rams get stopped on that third down late in the game, they have to give the ball back. You kind of wondered if Tom Brady was going to have some of his old school magic, and he did. Now, granted, it took 2 things. Number one, the prevent defense from the Rams. I understand what you're trying to do. There's a lot of critics who say that what's the saying? The prevent defense prevents you from winning.
Yep.
But we've seen stuff like, for example, with the Browns a few weeks ago, where, I mean, I guess that's more of a botched read. But if you don't play prevent enough, then a team could easily burn you. Now, granted, the whole thing is, you can get the ball back if you give it up, but I don't know about that. But yeah, Tampa Bay. And the second thing was the pass interference call, which got them down to the 2-yard line. They score. You knew they were going to win right after that. And that's a necessary win for the Buccaneers, because you would have been looking at 3-6, which would have been so difficult to come back from, even with the talent that this team can have. As far as the other games go, I was very fascinated by the Jets getting to 6-3. This is not a runaway division for the Bills this year now. They're probably still going to win it, but the Jets are giving them some serious concern and prove that they can play with them yesterday if the defense is on point. After that botched opening kickoff, I thought, oh, this is going to be an easy victory. They're going to go downfield, and then they intercept the pass from Josh Allen. And it's like, okay, well, they're making it respectable, and then they keep it going. Zach Wilson's in a position right now where, as a young quarterback, he doesn't need to throw 35, 40 times a game. He threw only 25 passes yesterday. If the offense can do just enough to match up with what the defense can do when it's playing well, that's a recipe that kind of alludes to, or reminds me of, the Jets teams from about a decade ago under Rex Ryan that were building those playoff runs mainly on their defense, when you just had Mark Sanchez just kind of just there. It's interesting, and I'm very fascinated to see such a close race in the AFC East, where all the teams right now have winning records. So, and I'm looking at that right now, and I'm thinking to myself, where do they go from here? Now, as far as the other matchups go, you frozen, man? You good?
Yeah, now you're there. You froze up and disappeared.
You froze up. All right. I'll see where the recording does. I'll just pick up from 3.
I was gonna say, you just tell me what your last thing was, or you pick it up from there. It doesn't matter. Yeah, you were in the middle of something, and then you paused like that.
Well, I stopped because I saw you were frozen, and I was like, "You good?" Yeah. Huh. As far as the other games go, I'm looking at that Packers game was just weird. It's weird that they're this rough right now, losing this many games in a row, losing to Detroit of all teams, letting them come back, and then not being able to get that touchdown near the end and not even coming close to it. It's such a misread play. I think I saw a report this morning. It said that they should consider going for Jordan Love at this point. Is this a serious move that the Packers need to make in order to try and salvage something together?
No, it's not, because Jordan Love is not going to help the wide receivers catch footballs. It's not going to help them figure out what type of team they are, whether they want to run with Aaron Jones and company, or whether they want to throw the football. And you're not going to bench a quarterback who I believe signed for over $50 million. And I'm guessing here, or this is what I heard. I didn't look this up either, but the dead cap hit on him, Mitch, is insane, almost unthinkable amount next year. So it's not like you're going to cut Aaron Rodgers. I mean, we are talking about one of the greatest quarterbacks that we've ever seen.
Yep.
He's having a bad season, that lost his best wide receiver, who arguably was one of the top 3 wide receivers in the sport. And now you have guys going down to injury. I think the Packers as a whole are just a mess. I think Aaron Rodgers has played very poorly this year, as has Tom Brady. And I think those are 2 of the quarterbacks that we just expected to always play well. And it looks like maybe age caught up to him, but Jordan Love is not going to fix the Packers, Mitch. He's not. I I don't know what needs to happen there, because it looks like at times that Aaron Rodgers is extremely frustrated with Matt LaFleur, the head coach. It looks like other times he, as we know, he's upset with the front office and the moves they've made and the lack of wide receivers they went out and gotten him. It's a bizarre spot for the Packers, but at the same time, if you're the Packers, do you just kind of say the season's a wash, get a high draft pick, and then realize that next year when you come back, you're going to have a pretty easy schedule if you end up finishing last in your division, because you'll be playing last place teams across other divisions when this schedule comes out outside of your NFC North division. So it's tough to say, because at the same time, you don't want to say it's over, but I don't think anybody had the Minnesota Vikings being 7-1 after week 9.
No.
I think we're being fooled a little bit, Mitch. I think they're a good team. I think they're a good team that has taken advantage of their bad division. I don't think they're a great team. I don't think they're the second best team in the NFC, as it would show right now behind the undefeated Eagles. But maybe we're wrong. Maybe we are. Who knows? I mean, I think that the 7-1 record is them taking advantage of bad division, 3 teams under 500 by 3 games or more. And they're still doing their job, but I don't buy the Minnesota Vikings as a legitimate threat to win the NFC, Mitch.
See, I do kind of agree with that for now, but I also think that of Philadelphia, because this 8-0 Philadelphia team feels like one of the weaker undefeated teams we've seen at a halfway point in a season. Like it's not computing why this team is 8-0 right now. They're doing what they can to win games, and I'll give them that. But I'm looking at some of the matchups here that in their schedule. The only legitimately impressive victories they have this year are week 2 against Minnesota, 24-7, because of what Minnesota has turned into since that loss. But then you also have the win about a month ago over Dallas, 26-17, which they did not have Dak. That was the game that brought Cooper Rush back to earth.
Yep.
Other than that, Washington, Jacksonville, Arizona, Pittsburgh, Houston. This seems like a really easy start to the season, and it actually might not get that much harder, because you have to take on Washington again, at Indianapolis, who's really struggling. Like it's shocking how much they're struggling this year. Green Bay, Tennessee, they just played well against the Chiefs, but who knows if Malik Wilson is going to have to be the guy here soon if Tannehill is not going to come back. The Giants, that's going to be a legit test.
Twice still.
Yes.
Keep in mind. And that's the thing. I don't mean to cut you off there, but the Giants are a team right now, Mitch, that they're 6-2 and tied for second.
Yeah.
Well, really third after tiebreakers in the NFC East, but that's a team that we didn't see being as good as they are.
Nope.
And you have to wonder, is that a team that could, give the Eagles fits, especially when you're talking about they're going to play twice now in a 9-week span. I know that there's some teams that play, division opponents 2 times in 3 weeks. I don't know what that schedule looks like, because I'm not an Eagles fan, but that's something else to think about. And then they have to play the Cowboys with Dak in Dallas. So we're going to find out here, because you can only play the team on your schedule, right? You play who is on your schedule, and it's as simple as that. And to this point, the Eagles have done what they had to do, but it will get a little bit tougher when you have to go on the road to Dallas and play the Giants twice more. And we'll have to wait and see. But I think that I'm buying the Eagles, because nobody else in the NFC is worth buying.
Right. Really, nobody in the NFC feels like they're worth buying. If your 2 best teams in the NFC are 8-0 and 7-1, and they feel like they could be a house of cards team at any point, then what am I investing in here for? Because your Buccaneers are struggling, your Packers are struggling, your Rams are struggling, the 49ers have had their kind of struggles. What was it?
I was going to say, but what about the Seattle Seahawks, Mitch?
They're such an anomaly of a team, because Geno Smith is playing like a guy who has finally figured it out. Their defense has been able to come up in some impressive ways, even though they've had some serious slip-ups in the earlier parts of the season. But when you get these victories over in-division opponents like Arizona twice, you can beat the Chargers even on a good offensive day. And you can go into these matchups against the Rams and Niners, where I'm almost taking them as they could be favorites at this point late in the season. Then, maybe the Seahawks team is one that I'm going to keep my eye on, even though I definitely wouldn't have done so before the season started.
Is Geno Smith a legitimate name to throw in the MVP race?
As of right now, I could say yes, but
I mean, here's where we are with his stats. I have them pulled up here. QBR, he's fourth in the NFL at 68.1. He's thrown 15 touchdowns. That's tied fourth in the NFL. 4 interceptions only thrown this year. That's tied ninth in the NFL. And he's sixth in the league in passing with 2,199 yards. And when you go down here, Mitch, his rating in 4 of his last 5 games is all over 100. And I believe he is the only quarterback this year in the NFL to have over 7 games of over 100 in terms of rating. This is a guy, Mitch, that when Seattle started the season, I didn't care who it was going to be, whether Drew Lock or Geno Smith. I didn't think they were going to be any good. And here they are, 6-3. You mentioned they've beaten Arizona twice. They beat the Chargers. I mean, this is a team that we're really going to have to start looking at as an actual, threat in the NFC, because they keep winning when we don't think they're going to.
Yeah. I'm curious. I mean, look, Patrick Mahomes is still probably going to be the MVP by season's end because he's just the most consistently dominant player in the league, and his numbers show that. But I don't. It says something that Geno Smith could be in this conversation at this point in the year. So that's all I got to say about it.
I was going to say, I feel like you have to, but to your point on Patrick Mahomes, this is the last thing I'll say on this segment. That Sunday night football game between the Tennessee Titans and the Chiefs made absolutely no sense. Made absolutely no sense. If you just gave the box score with all the stats to a football fan and say, what do you think this game ended up being? Mitch, you would not expect the Chiefs to have won in overtime by 3. You just wouldn't have. You're talking about over almost 500 total yards for the Chiefs and 229 yards for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
And your quarterback only completed 5 of 16 passes, and all his completions were not to wide receivers. They were to tight ends or running backs out of the backfield. And you're telling me the Tennessee Titans had a lead in the 4th quarter on the Kansas City Chiefs? That doesn't make much sense to me at all. And I can't get over that.
Derrick Henry, man, he just had something going. It was 115 yards, 2 touchdowns. And it's such a strange setup here. I'm trying to look up the time of possession for both teams.
It was 46 minutes for the Chiefs, obviously with some change, to 23 minutes for the Tennessee Titans.
All right. Well, that makes even less sense.
You're telling me.
Yeah, that's a weird one. Yeah, that's such a weird game. But it's a game of football. It's a game we're talking about here on Big Time Sports Podcast Show, and we'll be talking about other sports right after this.
You asked for it and we listened. Buckeye Career Center is now offering Certified Nail Technician as an adult education program. This 216-hour course begins in November and will run Tuesday through Thursday evenings from 5 to 9 p.m. Learn manicures, pedicures, infection control, salon operations, and more. Other part-time certification courses starting this fall include phlebotomy and welding. Call 330-339-2288 to register or visit buckeyecareercenter.org for more information.
If you're looking for a new or pre-owned car or truck, why not see the Parkway Auto Group? Parkway is a special group of automotive experts with 8 brands to satisfy your needs. Come see the difference at the Parkway Auto Group on Commercial Parkway in Dover. 8 brands and 1 family. It's Parkway Auto Group.
The Furby Electric Supply Company has bright ideas for your home. Save money by converting to energy-efficient electrical products or add ambiance with beautiful lighting features. It begins with a professional consultation and a visit to the Furby Lighting Showroom. Then certified Furby contractors complete your project right and on time. Since 1934, 4 generations have built a reputation of quality and trust, and they offer emergency services too. Just visit Furby.com. That's F-U-R-B-A-Y. The Furby Electric Supply Company.
It takes a lot of practice to have a winning team. Albin Title has over 100 years of combined experience handling real estate, title, and escrow transactions. They serve Tuscarawas, Stark, Carroll, Harrison counties, and more. So choose Albin Title for your next home refinance, sale, or purchase. They'll get it done quickly and professionally. Contact Albin Title at 330-334-5800 or visit their website albintitle.com. Let them put their experience to work for you.
Where you matter.
You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. Alt Care.
Alt Care, Alt Care. Where you matter.
Fall is in the air and part-time career enhancement courses at Buckeye Career Center are on the horizon. Registration is now open for Introduction to Beekeeping, Basic Small Engine Repair, and Sign Language. These part-time offerings run on Tuesday evenings and begin in November. Let Buckeye Career Center help you learn a new skill or advance your current skill set. Call 330-339-2288 for more information or to reserve your seat in one of these or our other part-time classes.
And welcome you back here to the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. It's Mitch Spinell, Mitchell Balla here to talk more. Going to the baseball side because baseball season, Mitch, is officially complete. It's a, damn it, man, I wanted them to do it. I really wanted to see a different result than what we got. But in the end, the Houston Astros clinched their second championship in, 5-6 seasons now. First since 2017 with the Game 6 victory over the Phillies this past Saturday night. And Mitch, looking at where this series went since our last recording, it was just I kind of knew once Game 4 ended that it was like, all right, this series is probably going to go the way I think it's going to go, because it was such a tough way for them to come back. The Phillies made a valiant effort to try and keep in the series, but I think the talent was absolutely highlighted in the way that the Astros were able to close out the last 3 games and get this championship, which I don't know if you agree with this, but to me, it does put a sense of a slight sense of legitimacy to this run that they've been on. And it kind of quiets the critics of the cheating scandal for at least a decent amount of time.
I'll touch on that here in a second. To your first point, just the series overall, I felt that it was not necessarily over once they threw the no-hitter in Game 4 and 1, but I did feel that momentum was on the Astros side. Now, Schwarber leading off the bottom of the first inning in Game 5 with a home run, I thought the Phillies stole it right back, and I do think that the Phillies had it, but once the Astros fought back and took it back, I think the Phillies kind of were like, oh, this team's up. We're not going to surprise them anymore. And the Astros did what the Astros were supposed to do, as they were the best team in the American League all year, second best team in baseball all year. The Phillies were flat out fun, though. They were a fun bunch to root for all postseason.
Yep.
That ballpark was insane to see Harper do the things he did. Schwarber, Castellanos, Bohm, Hoskins, just a fun lineup. This Astros team winning, it leads me to 2 things. One, good for Dusty Baker. The oldest manager now in all of sports to win his first championship. And I don't know if you saw the fact, but when he coached his first major league game, the leadoff hitter for that team he coached, and I don't know I think it was the Cardinals, leadoff hitter's last name was Pena. And now when you look at the Astros and the ALCS MVP and the World Series MVP,
that's very funny.
His last name is Pena. Yeah, that's right. It was his dad that Dusty Baker coached in his first career managerial job, and now he has his son on the team who just won World Series MVP. So that's kind of a fun note.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So just crazy, just something like that. That's how long Dusty Baker's been doing this, guys, and finally gets it, and that's good for him. To the whole cheating scandal, this is going to still follow the players that were on that team in 17 and still on this team now forever.
I agree.
Jordan Alvarez is excused. Pena, the rookie, is excused. Michael Brantley. There's a number of guys in this team that just won it that are excused from that argument.
Yep.
It's never going to leave my mind that Alex Bregman cheated, Jose Altuve cheated, and Carlos Correa cheated, and George Springer. The 4 guys that try to quiet everybody down, saying we didn't. There are obviously more than 4, but the 4 big names that tried to say, oh, we didn't do it, and then showed no remorse. If anything, I think that them winning this now clean, as we know, opens up the door for why did you have to cheat in 2017? Why did you feel the need to have to cheat in 2017 if you can do it now the way you did it. And the whole, well, they didn't have Verlander back then. Well, they had Garrett Cole. They had different pitchers, sure, but it just, I'm never going to forget it. And I think the big thing for me is because they never got any punishment for it. And that's what it is. And to everybody out there, I've said it before, and I know my buddies and I still talk about it. There's cheating in almost every game of baseball.
Yes.
Now, it's how good are you at cheating in terms of picking signs?
Mm-hmm. There are differences.
Every team can do that. When you start using technology and cheating the way they were doing, and pretty much, Mitch, in some cases, altering people's careers because you were knowing what pitch was coming from the pitcher.
Yep.
That's a completely different story. And it's something I'm never going to get over. And I do hate the Houston Astros still to this day. Happy for Dusty Baker. Happy for Michael Brantley, even though he was not healthy, but he does get a ring. And Yordan Alvarez, Mitch, is going to potentially be the next big name in baseball to not only get paid, but be the next guy that we see as the most frightening player at the plate, because he is something else. And that ball he hit Saturday night, 450 feet to dead center. That was just the cherry on top for the season he had, which I still thought he was kind of disrespected in some way, shape, or form. I understand Judge had a historic season. I still thought what Yordan Alvarez deserved some recognition. But then the playoff run he went on, I mean, the bomb he hit in game 1 against the Mariners to how he played against the Yankees to now here, just Yordan Alvarez is a treat to watch and is going to be one of the top players in baseball, if he's not already, here in the next few years.
For sure. For sure. I'm happy that, you mentioned the two guys that I'm really happy that they won, in Baker and Brantley. Some of those ones where I'm like, all right, got your second ring. Good for you. You can throw Yuli Gurriel into that mix as well as the guys who were on the fix. I don't know. I think this is my acceptance stage of the grieving process when it came to those Astros titles. Cause again, I didn't like them beating the Dodgers for whatever reason in the 17 World Series. I was like, this team is going to get all right, fine. And then, they kept going back, beating all these teams. And then once the scandal breaks out, you're thinking, oh, this is going to be the season from hell for this team. We're going to be all there. We're going to cheer everybody. Then we can't go to the games. All right, then we'll go to the games next year. But it doesn't have that same effect. And the team is still really good. It's not like this team just lost a bunch of its players or draft picks or prospects and just bottomed out. They're still really freaking good.
Yeah.
And you got to give them the credit when where credit is due. So I have to give them that at this point.
Right.
And we'll see where it goes next year, because there's going to be some teams that are going to be gunning back for the championship. 7. That's the thing. They were 2 games away from, or 2 playoffs losses away from 6 consecutive World Series appearances. A 7th championship series appearance is what I meant to say, is very difficult for any team to do. But the other teams they'll have to earn it if they want to take down a roster like this.
I was going to say, we're going to see what happens, because this is going to be a huge off season across the entire league of baseball, American League, National League, whatever. I mean, we're talking, if you just pull up the front page on ESPN for baseball, I mean, you're talking, is Bryce Harper going to elect for surgery? Because he's not going to be a DH, you'd think, next year, Mitch, for what he's being
Probably
paid. He is a very good outfielder. Trey Turner's a name to watch out for. Dansby Swanson's a free agent. You have Aaron Judge, obviously. And I don't know if you saw, but it looks like already 10 New York Yankees elected to decline their option and are already into free agency. I saw that today. There's going to be a lot of movement, head coach movements. We've already seen the Royals and White Sox name their manager. Are the Phillies going to retain their interim manager? Are the Guards going to spend money? The winter meetings aren't too far away, and that's where a lot of this gets going and a lot of moves go down. And this is probably, besides October baseball and the home run derby and all-star game, this is probably one of the most electric and fun times, because the rumor mill is off the charts. And we have a team that should be making some moves to improve their chances to win a World Series, because we're not far away. And hopefully this is us next year that we're talking about winning a World Series.
It would be nice. So when we come back, I'm going to get more into back to the football side on college, because there were some crazy results this past week, and we'll be wrapping up the show right after this.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
Hard work is something you're accustomed to. Van Nostrand Young understands that principle. Our access is achieved with organizations like Grange Insurance. Safety and prevention specialists utilize our VanCan assessments process to ensure that you and your colleagues are in the best hands. You want the safest environment for your business, and we can guide you there.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-496.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
If you're purchasing a new home, the team at Hartzler's Quality Housing is here to help. Take advantage of record low interest rates to make your new home a reality. Locally owned and operated since 1978, Hartzler's Quality Housing has the experience to guide you through the process. You'll find a wide selection of model homes on site to fit any budget. Open 6 days a week just off I-77. You can also visit them online at hartzlers.com. Hartzler's Quality Housing. Quality from start to finish.
When others treat your fries as an afterthought, all you're left with are cold, soggy fries. That's why Wendy's new fries are ones you won't forget, guaranteed to be hot and crispy, or we'll replace them. We're talking natural cut, skin-on fries, perfectly seasoned with a hint of sea salt. In fact, they're even preferred almost 2-to-1 over McDonald's. These are fries so hot and crispy, they beg a new question.
What would you like with your fries?
Try them today, only at Wendy's.
At participating U.S. Wendy's, taste preference based on a national taste test by an independent research company.
Back here for our final segment on the Big Time Sports Podcast show. Now time to go into college football, Mitch, because this past weekend was maybe the most eventful of the season. We've had a number of big games within the top 25 and a number of upsets that I think are really going to shake out the second week of the college football playoff rankings. We're going to have new number one. We're going to have new number one, and it's going to be the Georgia Bulldogs after they beat the Tennessee Volunteers 27-13 in a game that didn't even really feel that close because Georgia dominated. It felt like from beginning to end. And that's also because let's go into this game. Ohio State took on Northwestern in what a lot of Buckeye fans are describing as a monsoon. There were reports that the winds reached upwards of like 80 miles an hour. Nevertheless, undefeated Ohio State won 21-7 against one-win Northwestern. That was the most frustrating game I think I've had to watch all year. The week after the most frustrating game of the year against Penn State. And look, I'm not saying that Ohio State's this complete fraud of a team. They've got some good stuff. I like CJ Stroud a lot. I didn't like what I saw Saturday. It was hard for me to get through all the missed throws and the sloppy tackling to begin with, and seeing Northwestern pull off plays that they shouldn't have, it just felt weird to me. And I understand why the committee is looking at Georgia's win versus Ohio State's game, and they're going to put the SEC team at number one because they deserve to be it right now.
Absolutely. Georgia had the more impressive win this weekend. It's the argument for Ohio State, obviously, Mitch, to your point, is the weather. I actually had a friend from high school that lives out in Illinois now, and he was at the game, and he said he didn't even know how to explain it because it was so crazy. And I think a lot of people saw the viral clip before kickoff of the kickers kicking their field goals, and the one literally just hung in the air because the wind was so crazy. I believe it was during the game at times about 50-mile-per-hour winds. It did get 80 once. I know the press box actually was given a warning because of obviously being up so high. They would feel it move because the winds were so aggressive. You can be upset with how Ohio State played. You can criticize them, which I think you and I both are going to do. And, you kind of did already. They're still going to be the number 2 team in the country. The one thing that I'm going to throw here for why that they did what they had to do to win is because I think all of last season and this season, there's been one thing I've been extremely critical about with the Ohio State offense, and it's the fact that we have a quarterback who refuses to run.
Mm-hmm.
He refuses to use his legs. And Mitch, he did Saturday.
Yeah.
He ran for more yards than he threw because he couldn't throw the ball. Nobody could throw the ball. 79 yards for Sullivan from Northwestern, who threw the ball 14 times. Stroud threw it 26 times, which I think that's more indicative on Ryan Day for why you were still calling pass plays when Mayan Williams had 111 yards on the ground. But Stroud 79 yards on 6 carries. It was massive. Ohio State gave us a scare. It was 7-7 at halftime. But really, once they were up by 2 scores, Mitch,
yeah,
I wasn't worried at all because Northwestern didn't have the offense to move it.
Nope.
I do think Ohio State came out flat because they saw the record of Northwestern. They saw what they just did to Penn State and thought, oh, this team's going to roll over for us because we're Ohio State. They're not doing anything this year. They can't even be bowl eligible if they went out. Yada, yada, yada. Pat Fitzgerald always has his team ready to play against Ohio State. Always.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that scares me. But you survived. This is your one win. And if anything, Mitch, you cannot criticize this given the elements when Georgia couldn't even cover the spread against Kent State and then also was losing the entire game until under 8 minutes to go against Missouri on the road. Just so the people that want to argue this have to look at that and argue that. Georgia did what they were supposed to do, Mitch. And now we have to talk about what is Tennessee, because now Tennessee's impressive win isn't as impressive anymore.
Well, I don't know. It is.
Think about it this way. Their most impressive win is losing value in some sense.
Yeah.
Where Georgia's most impressive win up until beating Tennessee was gaining value in Oregon, as Oregon has rattled off win after win after win and climbed back into the top 10 now.
Yeah.
Where now Tennessee's most impressive win is falling out of the top 10 to number 10.
Yeah, because that's tricky though, because Georgia's never going to be at risk for bottoming out unless they legitimately lose this late in the season. Especially,
I mean this towards Tennessee, not Georgia. Georgia, to me,
I know. Yeah, Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee winning over Alabama, I think, is still impressive, even though LSU pulled off that victory in Death Valley on Saturday night. Tennessee, though, losing, not embarrassing themselves. They didn't embarrass themselves against Georgia. That's why I'm okay with where they're probably going to be at this point in the standings on Tuesday, to where it's probably going to be 4 or 5. I'm fine with that. The team has still looked very impressive this year. They have gotten some good wins against even the competition that hasn't been good. They've been able to really dominate well. And looking at their schedule, they'll probably win against Missouri, probably win against South Carolina, and then against Vanderbilt. And then they still have the advantage over Alabama, which is why that loss to LSU on Saturday was huge. In the standings right now, both Tennessee and Alabama have a loss, but with that advantage Tennessee has over the Tide, they can still make the SEC championship game and get to a matchup against Georgia again. Can't they?
No, because Tennessee is on Georgia's side of the SEC.
Okay, so Georgia would have the advantage over Tennessee. And Georgia would play Alabama.
Right now, LSU has the go to the SEC championship from opposite side.
Okay, so this is interesting to me because if LSU, let's say LSU wins out then. Let's say LSU wins out up until the SEC championship. Then you would have them play Georgia. And if Georgia beats what would now be 3-loss LSU, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Like that's Georgia's in. But let's say LSU pulls out a victory. Would a committee let a 3-loss conference champion into the mix?
Well, if they beat Georgia, it'd still be 2 losses unless they trip up somewhere.
That's true. That's 2 losses. Excuse me.
But what is happening with the other teams is the question. Because then, Mitch, now we're in a huge thing here, because if LSU does beat Georgia, that's a 2-loss conference champion, where Georgia has 1 loss but no conference champion.
Right.
But at the same time, if things work out, the Big Ten will have 1 team in there, Ohio State or Michigan. Is TCU going to roll out and keep going undefeated?
Yeah.
Because I think my argument here, I personally don't see how LSU can beat Georgia, but I understand your point. My whole thing here is people are still saying Tennessee should be a top 14. I don't necessarily buy it, because at this point, how are you going to put a team that could have controlled their own destiny that lost a game ahead of a team that has done everything you have asked of them to do in TCU, that is undefeated. And then not only if they run the table, they will have beaten a team for the second time this season in the Big 12 championship. I'm not here for this. Well, Tennessee's the better team. You avoid this argument if you win your football games. Yeah. It's pretty simple, actually. Now, they played a very tough team on the road. Yeah. I completely get that. But I am not here for if TCU goes undefeated and wins the Big 12, Tennessee still deserves to be in over them.
No,
because that argument is already starting.
I agree with that.
1 weekend of the college football playoff rankings.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm at it would be Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan's winner if they win the Big 10 title game. And then you could probably get TCU in there. And then where do you go from that point? Because, Oregon's still in the mix, even though they lost during the season, they're gaining ground. USC, the Pac-12, I guess, champion would be in it, but I would rather have Oregon win than USC win in order to get the Pac-12 into the playoff. Ole Miss plays Alabama this week.
Exactly.
And they're right behind LSU in the standings. So who knows where they could go from there.
And Mitch, we haven't even touched on another team. Clemson, they're done.
I know.
They have to be done, right? Unless complete chaos erupts here, Clemson has to be done because them losing the way they lost to Notre Dame, lost to Marshall at home this year, does not help their case at all. This is a team that we talked about for weeks, Mitch. They were just getting by,
hanging on.
And then it finally hit them this week in South Bend, Indiana. Dabo Swinney didn't know what to do. The Clemson Tigers looked shell-shocked, and they were embarrassed. And I don't see how that team, and it sucks because it's going to go against kind of how I say what I say. They should not be ranked ahead of Alabama. They should not. When these rankings come out this week for the college football playoff, I know the AP poll came out already. Clemson should not be in the top 10 because they are not a top 10 team in the country.
They dropped out all the way to 12 in the AP poll behind 10th ranked Alabama. And right now, Michigan's third. Michigan, I legitimately believe that. Ohio State and Michigan are 2 and 3 behind Georgia. TCU's fourth. You mentioned it. TCU fourth.
That's where they should be.
Oregon 6. That's fine. LSU 7. All right. 8 USC. UCLA number 9. That's interesting. UCLA and USC's winner then will have a shot if they get, and then Ole Miss is still number 11. If they win over Alabama, they get in the top 10. By the way, we're going to get some breaking news on this podcast because I don't know if you saw this. According to multiple reports, Frank Reich is out as the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts after a 3-5-1 start to this season. Mitch, immediate thoughts?
I'm not surprised. At the same time, though, the coach has to play who the general manager gets for him to put on the field. And he has done Frank Reich no service of the quarterbacks he's allowed Frank Reich to put out there, and Matt Ryan, who's washed up, and now Sam Ehlinger. But I always thought Frank Reich, obviously a lot of people thought he's the reason the Eagles won the Super Bowl, why Nick Foles looks so good. And while that was true, he was going to fix Carson Wentz, and it just was not a good fit. And Mitch, the Indianapolis Colts are caught in the middle now because I don't know what you do if you're the Colts. I feel like you have a top tier running back when healthy. You have a good offensive line, a good defense. Your weapons are shaky on the outside. Do you start this rebuild? Do you try to go spend money and go all in? They're in a spot that you hate to be in as an NFL franchise. But 3-5-1, the way they lost the Patriots yesterday was just so ugly.
Yeah.
I saw that I figured he would get fired. I guess I am kind of shocked that it happened today, and especially while we're doing this podcast.
I wondered if who would be the next head coach to get fired. Not to say that there would be an automatic head coach firing during the season, but judging by yesterday, I would have thought Kingsbury, who was my original pick for first coach fire, that ended up not being true. I still think it could happen this year if Arizona completely bottoms out because they're going to get rid of their college coach turned wonder boy over their franchise quarterback who they just gave a massive contract to. So he's still, that would give him an opening of like, oh, if he does well under the next head coach, then Kingsbury was the problem. But that's neither here nor there. He hasn't been fired yet. I don't even know where the Colts go for after this one. I mean, I don't really know. I don't know who it's 5 minutes after this thing has been released. So we shouldn't speculate too much as to who would be the guy now. We don't even know who's going to be the interim for the time being. Probably one of the assistant coaches.
You would have to assume probably the defensive coordinator, because am I off base here? Did they not fire their offensive coordinator a few weeks ago?
They did. They fired their offensive coordinator a few weeks ago. The defensive coordinator for the Colts is Gus Bradley, who does have head coaching experience, I believe, with the Jaguars.
Yep. So I would assume it's going to be Bradley. If not him, it'll probably be their special teams coach, because you've seen teams go that route before too. But yeah, this is that's what makes this very interesting now with the move being made, because Frank Wright, I think, felt the heat. Generally, the first move a coach makes when he feels the pressure is he fires one of his coaches, and he did that. And now he gets fired here after 9 games into the season. This is a team, Mitch, that people thought were going to win the AFC South. They thought they were going to be potential MVP candidate in Jonathan Taylor after he's coming off winning the rushing title last year.
Yep.
He's been hurt. There's some people that said that the Colts hurt him because of how much they ran him last year, but just this will be interesting for sure. This would be because they are caught in a tough spot when it comes to quarterback play and some other missing pieces. And
at worst, I would have thought it would have been a 500 team.
I agree.
Worst.
I agree.
And this is embarrassing. Like even your most positive, open-minded Indianapolis Colts fan in Pat McAfee has tweeted yesterday, it's getting hard to watch.
Yeah.
Like that's where it's like oof. Yeah, it's really not getting great.
It was really hard to watch yesterday because I went up against somebody who had the Patriots defense in fantasy. So
well, here you go. You and your fake I guess they're not fake because they're real players playing, but it's like for arbitrary points in an arbitrary league with fake standings. This is why I don't do it. And I'm proud to say I don't. If you want to do fantasy football, go right ahead and do it. Mitch, what's the fact of the day?
Oh, good question. Your fact of the day, but I definitely I can't use that one. Here we go. Here's a good one for you, Mitch. Babe Ruth acquired his 700th home run ball by paying the fan who caught it $20.
That's about right.
That's it.
Fans today would they know like what this stuff is worth now. They've seen the auctions, they've seen all the giveaways, and now that's about right. The fascinating world they lived in back in 1933. I feel like that was the time when he hit his 700th home run. Might not have been playing for the Yankees anymore. I'm not sure, or if he was, it was right at the end before he went back to Boston and took over the Braves. But first of all, before we go, I remind you guys, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, YouTube, BigTimeSportsOhio.com, at BTS on Ohio on Twitter. You know where to find us. I made it. I did it.
He did it.
I did it.
He did it.
Okay, 30 some episodes of this show. And I wasn't even trying, like legit trying. I wasn't aiming it or anything. Man. All right. I'm going to retire. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to retire right here. I got to find some sort of place on the wall up here where I can actually try. You know what I mean? Like, I got to find a place where it's not just going to be a simple handoff, like an out pitch to the running back. I got to do something here. I'm surprised even that I made that. I know it was a stupid, lame gag for 30 episodes, but it's finally completed. Well, I'm going to keep it going, but I don't know what I'm going to do. If you guys have an idea of where I should put it in this square that I have working with me, comment below. I'm happy, but I'm also kind of bitter about it. I'm not going to lie to you because now I need a new gag to do for the end of the episode. All right, this is the end of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Thank you so much for listening.